Hello, hello. Thank you for coming. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me in the back? Are we good? Great. I'm Kevin. I'm the fiction editor for Rejection Letters. I want to thank you so much for coming out. Rejection Letters started at the very, very beginning of COVID, and it's been so great kind of going through the process and getting to know people, but it's especially great now to be able to do something in person. So I really, really appreciate you all coming out to see so many incredible readers. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what we have to offer. Just a couple logistic things. The restroom is back here if you need to use that. We're going to have a break. We're going to have 3 readers, a break, and then 3 final readers. So I would imagine maybe that's the best time to use the restroom considering where we're going to hear the readers. Drinks are free, right? So go into both of those coolers, please, by all means. And then, of course, as someone's reading, we want to make sure that we're kind of giving them the respect they deserve. And then, of course, we want to make as much noise as possible once they're done. Anyway, are y'all ready? Yeah. Let's make some noise. Our first reader is a writer from Philly who also runs the excellent 30 West Publishing House. His work is in Maudlin House, Back Patio, and, of course, Rejection Letters. Please welcome Josh Dale. Yeah.
So I was at AWP all this week, so I'm super tired, but I'm super hyped to just read this little excerpt for you all. So I'm working on a novel, and this is an excerpt. It's about a guy, cashier, works at Target, and his name is PJ. And this is him just being a sad little dude. But I'll let the work speak for itself. All right. It's called Punks Like Us. To be honest, the cafe was a good way to escape the hustle and bustle of the cashier shift. However, today was Halloween, and it was a Saturday. I struggled to remember how long the franks were to be grilled. One went bleh and spat out a burnt hot dog on the floor. I tried popping 2 bags of popcorn in the kettle, causing it to overflow. There was a notice on the cabinet about a shortage of turkey, so the ciabatta sandwiches were out. I want to speak to your manager, became white noise. These people wanted their damn turkey. After a family of 4 took their seat, I took my hat off, folded my arms over the cold case counter, and put my head on my forearms. Just needed a minute to breathe and close my eyes. I was close to passing out. My mole was pounding from an ensuing migraine. Maybe I need a water, I thought in the darkness. Hello, sir, a polite and posh voice rang out. It was a woman. Are you on break? Sorry to disturb you. I raised my hand and it felt like my eyes were bubbling like an overheated soup. There was this woman dressed like a sugar plum fairy. She had a daughter with her, looking like a mini Disney princess. I wasn't into Disney as a kid, so I had no idea which one. Oh, I'm not on break, I say candidly. I felt at ease with their unassuming magical presence. Just needed to shut my eyes a bit. I want chicken nuggies, the little girl shouted. Totally broke her innocent appearance. I looked at the eating kids, took a deep breath, and said, yeah, I'm out, sorry. You don't have nuggies? The little girl wailed. Now, Maddie, don't cry, the good witch of the north said to her infantile sister of the south. The nice man doesn't have any more. I'm glad you think I'm a nice man, I thought. Little Maddie was just not having it. She stamped over to the cutlery and tore the napkins holders like a bear. Her dress swayed back and forth as she tore. Then the cups, they flew up into the air like fireworks launching from their tubes, bounced in the trash can on the floor into the soda drain, embodied chaos. Madison Jean, the mother said, her voice more from a silky mousse to a toasted crostini. She went to grab Maddie's shoulder, but the girl thrashed away. At this point, my chin was in my folded knuckles. I was fully entertained. Maddie darted to the condiments, reaching up to the packages and grabbing handfuls of them. She squeezed them between her little fingers, globs of mayo and mustard and relish mixed with ketchup and other abominable combinations. The sludge dripped onto the floor. Maddie seemed to thrive off her rampage. A sinister giggle snuck out between yelling sweet nothings. She went over to the hot dogs, took a brief look, and snatched a guac dog right off the rollers. I was shocked she didn't get burned. Maybe she was a demon out of hell. Hey, don't, the mom said. She was sweating or crying or both. She had an arm extended like she was casting her most powerful spell. Maddie went, and I swear, hurled the nasty Frank right into her mother's eyes. You could hear the slap. What an arm. The mother yelped and a little catastrophe ran into women's clothing and out of sight. I went, whoa, to myself. And I performed the utmost basic training. I paged on the walkie. LOD to cafe, LOD to cafe. The fairy godmother of a woman rubbed her eyes over greasy mascara ooze. That little brat is just like her father. What a mistake. Then she was gone. The parents glared at me like it was my fault and corralled their kids. Them too were gone, except for their trash. They left it in there like a war zone formerly known as the Target T-69 Cafe. Kevin, who was dressed as Chewbacca from the neck down, came stomping over within a minute. He greeted me with an unfriendly grimace as he surveyed the carnage. PJ, what in the hell just happened? He said to me. Some little girl had a tantrum over nuggets, I said. He missed the HBO event, his loss. And why didn't you stop her? She was fast. He looked over the mess. Gosh, there were assets destroyed and the floor needs mopping, he said. He pulled out a notebook from his satchel and started scribbling. What are you doing? You get one shift to cover and you let a child destroy it? This is a total write-up. I threw my hands up. Come on, what am I to do? The way Kevin looked at me legit scared me. It was like all the pudge in his face stretched back and he bore his teeth like the Sasquatch he was embodying. Target Employee Handbook 2010 edition, Section 2, subsection 3C, handling lost children. Does that, I don't know, ring any sort of bell? I looked at the guac dog on the floor. It was partially stepped on by the mother's pink sneakers. I wished it was Kevin. Madison Jean, you get back here. A voice echoed somewhere far away. Okay, I gotta end this little charade. Clean this up, Kevin said. He lumbered down the aisle, really owning his character. I wanted to laugh at the furry man bobbing up and down. I also wanted to turn the oven up to max and shove my head inside. I paged Claude to come on through if he wasn't busy. Thank God he wasn't. He arrived in 2 minutes with a mop and a slip hazard sign. Who would have thought the hero of the day was a burnout Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle with a dirty mop? Dang, man, did you do all this? He said, joking. I sighed, hunched over to grasp the dirty hot dog with my napkin rolled hand. Nah, some brat kid did this, and Kevin the bum wrote me up. Why would he do that? Because I didn't restrain the guest child or whatever. I swear he's a cop, I said, looking spoiled food into the trash. Claude chuckled, but his attention was elsewhere. He was staring at Kevin, walking through the registers with a girl high up on his shoulders. She was no longer crying and screaming, but giggling and raising her hands high. The mother was following them, acting like she found her knight in hairy armor. Some of the cashiers clapped. It was like he was parading through town after a war. Claude squeezed the mop in the cart and started sweeping over the contents. He strikes me as someone who brags about doing the bare minimum. Is it because he's too fat to arrest people? I said. Taking a stab at Kevin made me feel warm and tingly, despite screwed up napkin bits and crushed cups. No, Claude said. He lacks a backbone. Talks down to punks like us all the time. Do you think he can handle a career criminal with a gun? No way, dude. Punks like us, I thought. I suppose you're right. He wants attention. The one who saves a baby from a hot car. The good guy with the gun. But then time moves on. Uniforms come on and off. Graves are dug and buried, even here at your local Target. I pulled the trash bag out and tied it. Quite a philosophical guy, dude. You should go to college or something. Claude squeezed the mop again. Nah, not my thing, dude. I learned from the streets, from the dojo, from people I see in the stores. He jabbed me with the handle. Maybe even from fellow workers. I blushed. Come on. I don't teach anyone crap. I don't even know what the hell I want to do with my life. Claude rinsed his hands without soap. Anyways, dude, I'll see you at the shift, man. Party time. Yes, sir. He took away the mop and bucket and trash, left the sign. I patted his back. The lump of cotton for a shell made it feel like a motel pillow. I resumed watching the people not coming to my newly safeguarded cafe. A gust of wind blew open one of the front doors. Some dead leaves rolled into the cart corral. An associate from guest services had a hard time shutting the door. I could feel the last wisp of the gust on my face. I breathed it in. I felt alive for a little while longer. Thank you so much. Interested, I have these really dope postcards. They're from 30 West and Hoot Review. Hoot Review does a lot of like postcards. They do subscriptions monthly. So we decided to collab on one of them. It's called like 10 Galan Hat. So if you're interested, you can have one for free. And also, Jennifer Kampanik, one of the 30 West authors, is here. She has a couple books for sale, so feel free to support her directly. She'll probably sign it for you. Other than that, that's all I got. For you. There you go.
Let's get another round of applause for Josh. Our next reader is also from Philly. She's also a teacher. Her work has appeared in Vice, The Nervous Breakdown, Red Rock Review, and elsewhere. She's also scary good at D&D. Please welcome Rachel Reynolds.
Put my fear down, clap guys all for being here and you for having me. So nice. All right, I'm going to read you some poems. The first one is called I Am Not a Knowable Thing. It's after Joan Didion's essay on Georgia O'Keeffe, which is like really great. If you haven't read it, it's one of my favorite things. All right, here it goes. I am not a knowable thing, but bottles tossed into the air and shot by Claudia. No star memorialized in watercolor, but still a disappearance on the horizon, a slip from fingers after being drained and dropped into a sack flung over a shoulder at dusk. It is hardness, I speak, the certain translucence of glass, so I remember what it is to be sand. Not unlovable, but its opposite. Wholeness through opening, the rough rip that says, I am. So I am seeking bullets. I am looking to explode against the sky, refract that last light of day as I tumble toward dirt, into the earth that made me without judgment, back to her wish that I become whatever it is I think I am. All right, this one's called We Are on Vacation, but the birds and our dead grandmother keep seeking her. The kitchen shears are still in the drawer, tucked among spoons and forks, the odd chopstick and chipped quarter cup. My throat catches at the sight, body freezes, dish towel in hand. Alone in this small room, I feel the quiet all around. The lake is glacial. The loons lonely this evening, long gaps between their calls. Upstairs, my mother's mattress is stuffed with knives I secreted by the fistful as she lured my brother to the porch, offered him the sunset. The shears stare up at me, serrated and unafraid. I wonder what else I failed to notice. This one is called No One is as Mean to Me as Me. So good at titles. All right, no one is as mean to me as me. No one so sure that this mouth is a rude hole, slick scar that just won't heal. You call them lasers, but if you close the door behind you, I'm stuck alone on the other side with these eyeballs that glare from their root. It's my skin they bore through. See, I wasn't born with lungs nestled beneath thin points ready to pop. No, while you sleep, I fold over, gnaw myself into the shiv I best know how to be. I love it when I'm sharp. I love how bright and unrelenting. I love the feel of my own mean shine. Over the years, I have practiced forgetting, worked hard to stop freaking people out, to play the normal part. A phone on the counter, boots in the back of a cab, my first love's true name. I am good at it. The next time we buy a pomegranate, I will Google again the best way to peel back the skin. All right, this one's called I Slept with a Barrette Against My Breast. I told myself I wouldn't do that anymore. Okay. All right. I slept with a barrette against my breast. Flew and dropped into a pocket before I padded off to bed. Not a beretta, but still. The armor of a day pressed close. Thin ridge slumbering into my ribs. Totem of how the days possess. How even our dreams are not our own. 3 a.m. on the last day of April, and finally you have come to bed. I am in a tunnel somewhere between the wind and your breath. The tunnel is made of bed sheets. I'm lying still, listening, wondering how many layers of this room I can slip by. If there's a way to feel everything at once. Would I break you like a branch, tender green twist in my fist? Could I whistle through your bones so this whole house knows I roll in from the sea, low but rising. Might we be each other's crossbreeds? Arrows of air after the storm of any day dies down. Soft whisper in the dark. All right. This one's called One Way of Looking at My Mother. My brother is on Zoom watching this. One way of looking at my mother. I want you to hear the quiet of this house perched on the hill, old and barn red and leaning. Hear the trees, the thin rustle of dead leaves left on branches. Only the straggler birds remain, only their occasional call. Can you see my mother? She has her back to us, rust-colored coat pulled tight around. Her legs are long, her throat slim, her eyes glance over shoulder, squint for the road. No fire truck yet. She turns back. She does not think much has changed since she first saw smoke slip from the wall around the chimney. Hands to the plaster confirmed too much heat, so she listened up the stairs. Silence. In the kitchen, she picked up the phone, dialed for help, then quietly put on her shoes, pulled a jacket from the hook, went out the back door to wait. Years later, she explained I was a difficult baby. It was hard to get me to sleep. This one's called It Has Been a Long Year and We Have Rented a Cabin in Rural Virginia. On these acres of land, everyone rules what they rule. The rabbits do not pretend the tall grass is not theirs for disappearing. The deer don't act like they won't eat every apple on the tree. The woodpecker is steady at the trunk, no rush because, of course, no one else is coming. Over it all, a hawk alights from highest limb, singular pump then carried by air. She is in her own rhythm. She will eat when she sees what she wants. It will take a week for me to feel my own weight in this frank landscape. When I do, though, it is crystalline, and I wonder how you are ever afraid of me. All right, this one is for my friend Shannon. It's called A Bead of Water Pulls Away from the Glass. Drip. The blue light of television washes over us as the drop joins the pool at the bottom of your glass. You are come home, but not to your house, mine. I am watching from the corner of my eye. I am play it cool. We were all so worried you'd stay away. So when the phone rang at midnight, of course, I met you at the end of the drive, wrapped my arm around you, gently guided you in. On the couch, a blanket. On the table, a glass. From the television, an infomercial loops through the night, promises us a hose that never tangles. All right, this is my last one. It's called December, Pennsylvania. They can't all be winners. All right. All right. On the winter solstice, I drag a stool to the tall bookshelf, take down the old honey jar with Oakland sharp things written in a ring around the lid. At the sink, I dump the contents into the green plastic colander, turn the water to hot, take each shard of glass and rusty hook in hand, clean edges with the thin rim of my thumbnail. In our old yard, each piece appeared through the dirt, not there until our daughter spun her feet in the ground, twisting her swing tight, then setting loose, her body, the story of the land. In that sun, I gathered these remnants of others. Tiniest bottleneck, pottery striped with a narrow band of gold. Tossed them day by day into the jar until we moved and I took it with me. Stashed away tool to conjure the scent of grapefruit flowers blooming above. Or to remember how sharp our origins, or how poor, or how beautiful anyway.
Our next reader is a poet, translator from New York, whose work can be found in The Believer, the American Journal of Poetry, and about a million other places. She's read her translations at the British Library's Anglo-Saxon Kingdoms exhibition in London, was selected by the Poetry Society of New York for residency at the iconic Mid-Manhattan branch of the New York Public Library, and was a 2019 ALTA Travel Fellow. Her manuscript, The Errant, was a finalist for the X.J. Kennedy Poetry Prize. Please welcome Gnaomi Siemens.
Naomi!
Guys. All right, so this little Mamba Jamba is for sale here tonight. Cleopatra the Alchemist. Cleopatra visits a derelict mall, which she reads in the grease ghosting the glass changes if you let it. An orchard in winter, the person-shaped pile of clothes on a chair. Your moon is the color of a squash, cut side up. It was an older woman in red once. The salamander, pulsating in a volcanic vent. The oral cavity of the Mariana Trench. She gets you back to gold with gin, a quark, quinine. Quinine irradiates your cut, causing you to thumb suck all day. Sea moss is a good choice to lash around the wrist if you bled or have begun wearing your watch upside down. Cook yourself some soup for solace. Use a single egg found in an empty room. Ice flows that speak with thin white bears, of course. A glass eye on a string that fancies itself a lamp. Be sure to reduce it real slow. A crocodile climbing out of a ditch. It's ready when a spoon of it takes wing on the tongue, taste of a furnitureless bedroom in the dark. The boats that will fetch you after dinner distend and accept the tide. A country they carry you to grabs you, a fish hook in the upper lip. Night is a swarm of flies, an empty glass jar. You hold shovels for the entire island of perps. Check your mailbox like it's a blowtorch in the desert. Cleopatra irradiates your cut. You let her. Grease your orchard in winter. Her salamander essence takes wing on the tongue. She gets you. After dinner, her boat grabs you to gold with gin. Her sea moss is ready. A crocodile climbing out of a ditch. A spoon of it, solace. A thin white bear, a volcanic vent carries your perk walk to the upside down watch of the Mariana Trench, baby. Right. Are we there yet? Almost. The break's after this. Full sail south to treasure. The lapis rod the queen of heaven lay down will find you. Be well-booted. I, captain on deck, the drag king pirate queen left her baby daddy in the Dordogne and gave her twins to Mother Carey for safekeeping. She still wears that cave bear claw and a gold chain over her bound breasts. The alchemist fucks with eye coal to make her face more fierce. She has to match her outfits to her experiments. Stew meat on the verge of turn gets tidied up by coyotes come down from the hills. The lamplighter only gets lit when their cast iron crook goes in for the kill. Surprise, bitches. Volcanoes are making a comeback. Get down to your fighting weight and wait for Lilith in the garden. What we are about to do hasn't even started yet. Listicle for the end. I'm not losing my voice tonight. Listicle for the end. Grown children bloat without the sun's food. Take pale strokes of meat, ground into a paste, and pill for 'em. They forgot the trick of kneeling in grasses. Snow walks on mountains. The lion silently watching from her ridge. Cardinals, blood bodies lying around. Benedictions everywhere. Listen to the gut thrum of the creature as it grows from the barbed virus, its bacterial buttress mutating in the bloodstream. Cut it out before it reaches the heart. And you thought you were all swear. Twin gold pairs begin to rot philosophically without guilt. We struggle to find a fungus that will feed you. Quick cue. Can an oracle make small talk? The wind gets hard. All bets are off. The flame of a personal fire fidgets in its breath. Pretty soon, the whole world will flood again. A seed stuck in the gut festers, a fermenting vintage all set to drink. 10,000 years are not enough to live on. Any day now, a big black bird will culminate on the roof of the mouth, while the river continues its weeping and the trout fatten and learn to walk up the bank. You love what deceives you. See, darkness, a snake. Meanwhile, my water fills with longing, subsides to the root. An eyeball caressing the countenance of a paramour recites the 7 wounds of the ancient world and the means of the 9 muses. We will die. We aren't dead yet. Last one. Yes. Letter from Nix to her unborn twins. Planned Parenthood, Bleecker Street. I can't guarantee they won't call you names. All I know is I called you up from my own darkness. One night, keening with my favorite flock of banshees in the cemetery of the sky, and you're serious. Dogtown with my dog Star and my homegirls, skateboarding and shrieking along to Blue Oyster Cult. We look so good, fetched and fleshed. Fangirls freaking out because we had just run into our crush at the crossroads. Hecate was so cool, signed Sophie's tit without a second thought. The point is, I was feeling myself. Okay. They'll say your eyes are too big, your smile too wide. They'll call you creep, narcoleptic, blood bucket, head in the clouds, lazy, no good, Uncle Hendrik. They'll call you killers, dreamers. The little ones, let them. Sweet specters, baby germs of my special darkness, my winks and whistles, my tender weirdos kept in ancient glaciers emerging from my moms of ecstasy. Don't be afraid, babies. There's a pale tiger guarding the threshold. She waits for my word like a mountain and cloud. In the mud of the garden, slender root vegetables sigh and shift and drink. Delicate coral ladies tucked under gossamer. Little travelers, I'm telling you to trust me. Your mother. Thanks.
Another round of applause for Josh, for Rachel, for Naomi. We're gonna take like 10 minutes and then we'll be back with the next 3 readers, but grab a beer, grab a little sip of whiskey, go outside, smoke, use the restroom. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Hello, welcome back. Hello and welcome back. Hey everybody, the reading's about to start. Welcome back. Thank you for making your way back. We got 3 more readers tonight. Our next one is also from Philly. She's a Philly-based writer and teacher who's currently earning her MFA in fiction at Bennington College and working on a collection of short stories. Please welcome Nikki Volpicelli.
More people than I've seen in 2 years, so I'm just a little nervous, but it's okay. I'm going to read a short story called I Have Just One Question. It's about an ashtray. I'm not mad in case you're worried. I just wanted to ask you something. Plus, it's been really weird since you left last month. Like out of this world weird. But more on that later. Do you remember Mom's ashtray? How anytime we'd have a family dinner, it would be front and center. It was the 4th in our family of 3. It sat at the kitchen table longer than anyone. Me, you, Mom. Not that we sat together for long, but still, you've got to remember it. It was the size of a dinner plate. Remember at elementary school, the Thanksgiving hand turkeys we'd make? That ashtray was big enough to fit both our little kid hands, one on top of the other like a pack. Not that we'd ever put our hands in a dirty ashtray. We weren't heathens, just kids, rough. We wouldn't touch that thing for years, not even on a dare. It was scary, and like most grown-up things, we kept our distance as long as we could. I remember the stacked paper plates all used up with pizza grease, grease from fish sticks, grease from the Oride crinkle fries that Mom would heat in the oven and serve with every meal. You know, when we were kids, we didn't need a dinner bell. We heard the brush metal of burnt fries shifting on the sheet pan, and we ran to shove our faces with red, yellow, and orange. You and I, we'd hold our fries out like little cigarettes and dip them in the ketchup, tap, tap, just like Mom. We'd wrap ripped paper plates around our wrists like her gold bangles that clanked every time she ashed. Then poof, we'd be gone back into the woods, you the adventurer, and me your shadow sidekick. Remember how we guessed that she'd bought that ashtray at a flea market? Zern's maybe Renninger's? Remember the 2 lumpy palm trees all globbed onto the one side, all choked up with coconuts? The chicken scratched Hawaii etched in, hanging like a hammock between them? We couldn't picture Mom stepping out of her Levi's and cable knit sweaters. We couldn't see her boarding a flight, and you know how she hates driving into the city. Or asking a stranger to take her photo at the airport. You know how she hates talking to strangers. And buying a souvenir, she couldn't even empty out an ashtray. Years went by, and you turned 17, more fearless than ever before. And I turned 14, flat as I'd always been. I didn't understand when you started giving Mom a hard time, asking, can't you buy cottage cheese for once with celery sticks? You weren't even coming home to dinner anymore. You were in and out of the house like sunlight. You were smoking a pack of Parliaments a day, refusing to buy her brand of cowboy killers, like something so small could make you different. Remember sneaking me cigarettes when it was just us at the table? We'd keep our butts in the ashtray like it was, we'd stuff our butts in the ashtray like it was Jenga. I could only keep up because I never inhaled. There was the one afternoon a few months ago when I came home from school and you were already there, stoned and eating microwave Tostitos with easy cheese. I sat down, started peeling chips off the plate. You slid me a Parliament and leaned over the ashtray. You said, you think Dad's in there somewhere? Pointing to the heaping pile of bent, blanched pinky fingers, the overflow of ash. And you laughed so big I saw bright yellow cheese stuck onto your molars. I laughed too, but only because it had been so long since we had last had an inside joke. Lifetime since our fries and ketchup bit. Is that where you are, out there looking for him? And if so, why? He missed so much of us, our whole growing up. Why give him anything? I should have known you'd leave. You were halfway gone. You stopped coming home for dinner, probably subsisting off of whatever prepackaged thing you could grab on your way out. And then there were 3, I think. Eating fries, watching Mom, the ashtray. Did you know that she would stay at the table all night waiting for you to come home? From our bedroom, I'd hear the scratch of her acrylic nails on the wood, the papery slide of the cigarette from its pack, the flick of the lighter, the butane sizzle, the exhale. The later it got, the faster she went through them. It was stressful listening like that. I couldn't sleep. You had to know I was awake every time you lifted the window and pulled your weight over the frame. Your jeans made a quick zippy sound when you slipped in. You brought in fresh, cold air and gasoline. Sure, I kept my eyes closed, but did you really think I didn't know? 3 weeks to this day, I didn't have to pretend anymore. That Sunday morning, you didn't sneak. You just swooshed open the sliding glass door like we used to, loud and victorious, announcing your presence. At 2:30 a.m., I hopped out of my bed and I snuck into the kitchen and saw it all. Did you see me seeing? He was a freeze-framed shadow in front of the headlights of the car still running in the driveway. He wore a leather jacket that reeked of freedom, all animal and gasoline. He was so tall that I thought for a second you'd found him. But it was late and dark. When my eyes finally adjusted, my face felt hot. It was just another one of your older boyfriends, some guy who probably got you weed and beer and drove you around. You told Mom I'm leaving. That you have to remember. You'd imagine telling her half our lives. Before she stood up, she stubbed out her cigarette, let out this long exhale like she wasn't going to enjoy this. She moved toward the two of you, slow like a cat, and when she slapped you, the boy who you thought was going to sweep you off your feet just shuffled, staring at his boots. His hands never left his leather pockets. I know you didn't mean it. I know you were searching more than escaping. I know when you grabbed that big ashtray and threw it at her, you didn't mean to hurt her, because you could have, but I guess you didn't because it crashed and cracked and spewed ashes and butts at her heels, and she just kept walking, quietly closing her bedroom door. She didn't even turn around. But you didn't even say goodbye. The craziest thing happened after you left. The next morning, I padded through the hallway into our kitchen, and the sticky linoleum was gone, replaced by black and white sand, soft and powdery under my bare feet. The tower of mismatched Tupperware had turned to seashells, full peach-colored conchas with whole oceans inside. Clamshells with connective tissue still intact, the pearly white kind, the kind with ridges like the ones our Polly Pockets came in. You wanted fresh vegetables, fruits, and greens. If you'd stayed, you would not be complaining. I never knew this about coconut, but it's so high in antioxidants that it practically melts away belly fat. The oil, the milk, the copra, that's the meat. have so many uses. They have so many uses, beauty and otherwise. I don't blame you for leaving, and I hope you're happy. Mom does too. She'd write, but you know how she is on the keyboard, all pointer fingers and fake nails. How are you supposed to know that that ugly ashtray held some kind of magic? Really, we should be thanking you, because I haven't even gotten to the best part. Do you remember that teal polka dot bikini we circled in the J. Crew catalog? You remember. Well, that morning, there it was, laid out on the kitchen table between two hulking palm trees that shot through the roof and brought in the sun. It fits so well, just like it did on the model. It sucks because we've never been better, Mom and I. Within a week, the whole house was overrun by paradise. Exotic plants in a new world of colors and fragrant bunches of gardenia have taken over your side of the room. Don't worry, your JTT poster is still intact. As I'm writing, there are bright red-tailed birds nesting above the computer desk. A parrot in the corner chants, "You've got mail," and it's only mildly annoying. And you get used to it. Oh, and Mom quit smoking. I swear to God, she just needed something to do with her hands. She picked up this beautiful mahogany ukulele, and like a natural, she was able to eke out "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." Like it always lived inside her, just waiting to come out. Seeing how glamorous she looks in her silk blue kaftan, her sun hat, and the cat-eye sunglasses makes me think we weren't so far off about Hawaii all those years before. Yesterday, I watched her strum the same 3 chords over and over, all absent-mindedly, looking out into the aqua waves that were once our gray gravel driveway. I figured it couldn't hurt to write. To tell you everything has changed, and there are plenty of coconuts, and we can share the bikini. I do not mind. And to ask, will you come and visit? It would make me really happy to see you. Mom too, even though, like I said, we've never been happier.
Nikki Volpicelli. Our next reader is the author of the novella Whimsy from Long Day Press and the essay chapbook Pathetic. If you have not yet read Whimsy, you need to. If you are a teacher, it is essential. Her writing has appeared in Tin House Online, Wigleaf, Hobart, Joyland, Cosmonauts Avenue, and Prairie Schooner, among other publications. Her stories have been nominated for Best Small Fictions, Best of the Net, and featured in Wigleaf Top 50. Please welcome Shannon McLeod.
Thank you so much. This book came out a year ago, and this is my very first in-person reading since the book came out. So this is incredibly special to me. Thank you so much, Kevin, for inviting me. It means a lot. Thanks, Lot49 Books and Rejection Lit. So I'm going to read from this novella, Whimsy. I do have a few copies over there if you'd like one. Stop by, grab one. Well, I mean, I would prefer you pay for that. Like, maybe we could trade if you're low on cash. I know it's the end of AWP. If we run out, like if you order, I'll do a doodle of a snail for you in exchange. Okay, so the chapter I'm going to read today. Well, first I wanted to ask how many of you have a friend from your youth that you've drifted apart from? Yeah, that's what this chapter is about. And I just thought it would be, I was thinking about this today as I was preparing mentally. I didn't practice at all. But like for reading this chapter and thinking about how important those people are, even if we no longer talk to them, that they've served some really important place in our personal histories. And so this is for Jesse and Carly and Kaylin. And I thought maybe you all could think about somebody that you used to be really close with, who you've deviated paths from, and just kind of like send them love, whether you know where they are or not. And I thought it would be pretty cool if we all, after you think of who that person is, give them a shout out together. So 1, 2, 3. What's their name? Oh, that was beautiful. All right, cool. So this book is about a middle school teacher named Whimsy, who's recovering from an accident that she was in college that left her with some facial scarring. And it's about her kind of falling in love with a journalist who's writing about her experience, writing a human interest piece. And it's all about the way that her own self-perception warps her relationships and her experience of the world. We'd begun our tradition, Miri and I, once we were 16 and old enough to drive. Miri's grandfather had an indoor pool, and we would go for a night swim on the evening before each of our birthdays. They weren't necessarily special. We used the pool at least once a month in high school, but it was important to us then to be with each other when we officially turned a year older. I hadn't felt close to Miri since high school, and maybe she hadn't felt close to me either, but we attempted to keep the tradition alive anyway, out of some shared sense of duty. After college, we both lost enthusiasm for the ritual. So it had been several years since we'd met at Miri's grandfather's to swim. I'd received her wedding invitation a couple months before and had been thinking about her in the weeks leading up to her 25th birthday. It's easy to remember the phone numbers and birthdays of your childhood friends. So difficult to remember anyone else's. Like your brain fills to capacity with those numbers growing up and won't tolerate fitting anymore. On a whim, I called her, asked if she happened to be around. I'm free that night. It was nearing 10 when she texted to say she was heading to her grandfather's house. Miri referred to it as a house, but it was really a mansion. When I arrived, she greeted me with a squeal. We gave each other a tight hug, rocking back and forth as we held on to one another to show how much we meant it. We said we'd missed the other. We asked when the last time we'd done this had been. We scolded ourselves for letting so much time pass. Filled with giddiness, I grabbed her hands and squeezed them. I followed her into the downstairs dressing room, which she called a back room. It included 3 sinks, 2 stalls, a shower, and a jacuzzi tub. 2 benches mirrored each other on opposite sides of the room. This is where we'd go to change into our bathing suits, where we would sometimes smoke a pre-swim joint when we could get our hands on one. I pulled my suit out of my bag. It was the first bikini I'd purchased in a decade. I usually hid the scars on my stomach, but over the past summer, I read the autobiography of a British TV personality who had her face reconstructed after suffering sulfuric acid burns. It gave me the temporary courage to visit the mall and purchase the skimpy things I wanted to wear, like a teal polka dot J. Crew. Miri got undressed quickly and without shame. What happened to your hair? I asked. She looked down at her crotch, and it used to be natural like mine. It had been familiar to me. William likes it this way, she said. I fastened my top and watched Miri look over her reflection. So I got us some of that wine we used to love. Miri pulled up her bottoms. What's that? White Zinfandel, she winked. She could pull off winking. When we got to the pool, Miri walked in from the shallow end, holding her lungs full like the warmth of her breath would protect her from the water's chill. I did a cannonball into the deep end. It's the only way I've ever been able to get into the water. I swam towards Miri. Her body looked even more incredible than it had in high school. I wanted to say so, but wasn't sure how to put it in a way that wouldn't sound strange or envious. As teenagers, I developed first, and she was the one who'd been jealous of me, even though I was too shy to talk to boys then, and she'd always been better at getting boyfriends. Miri bent her knees to briefly dunk herself up to her shoulders. I wanted to revive our old banter, but I stayed silent. It seemed like Miri was thinking of something else anyway. I dove down and swam in a circle. Underwater, my skin looked smoother, tinted a pale green. My hair floated in front of my face as I took a sharp turn. The strands became copper-colored, and in the pool light. My legs drifted and kicked. They looked sleek, strong, useful. For a moment, I felt beautiful. When I came up for air, I flipped onto my back and looked at the ceiling as I did slow backstrokes. I wasn't ready to see Miri to feel ugly by comparison. In my mind, I tallied up all the men who had seen me naked. Only one had been with my bare body since the accident. On a weekend stay at my dad's the summer after my sophomore year of college, Dad invited his work friends over to a party. After the bonfire had died down and the others had gone home or found a place to crash inside, Philip and I were left sitting on the lawn chairs. He brought his camper so we could pass out drunk in the backyard. I was adamant about keeping my shirt on, the lights off. He became instantaneously sober long enough to turn on the light and talk me out of my clothes. He ran his hands over my hips and I closed my eyes. Across the pool, Miri was still standing in the shallow, the water level just above her navel. She swept her palms against the surface of the water. The lights from the bottom of the pool shone on her face, casting wiggly lines across her forehead. Even Miri's posture seemed different. Her limbs moved more stiffly. I tried to remember the last time I'd seen her. It couldn't have been more than 8 months ago. Yet she had found a way to change everything about herself. Could I change that quickly too, if a man asked it of me? All of our beliefs that we'd shared, the things I thought were inherent in ourselves and made us special, turned out to be so malleable. I dove down again, pulled the water beside me until I reached the shallow edge. I did a careful flip beside her and pushed myself back toward the deep end. I quickly found the bottom and my stomach scraped lightly against the gritty concrete. On the thin tissue of my stomach, I could almost feel the tiny abrasions that were cut into my skin. It felt good, like plucking a deep-rooted hair from a knuckle, like holding a palm to a candle flame. I planted my hands on the bottom of the pool and shoved hard, anxious for breath. I treaded water for a moment and looked up at the wall facing me. On it, there was a window that looked out into a hallway. The only lights besides those along the inside edges of the pool came from that window. In the near dark, the hall light was so bright that I hadn't yet noticed the mural on the wall beside the window. It hadn't been there before. It looked like a Picasso ripoff. Strange angular faces floated just above bodies, which were depicted through blue and green boxes. Some of the figures had mouths with teeth jutting out in yellow triangles, pink squares. Others had no mouths. It started to scare me, so I turned around. Miri was out of the water, sitting on a vinyl upholstered couch, one piece in the set of patio furniture that lined the opposite end of the pool. I swam towards her, my mouth grazing the surface of the water. She pulled the bottle of wine out of her handbag and set it on the couch between her legs. I got out of the pool and picked up a towel from a bin beside the furniture. The bin was always stocked like a nice hotel. Whenever we'd come here to swim, I'd catch myself looking out the window anytime I took the towel. I thought her grandfather might come rolling down the hallway and yell at me to drop it. He never did. I only ever saw him when we said hello to him upstairs as we first arrived, unless it was night. Then we would slip inside quietly. Once in the pool, our voices would grow louder. The echoes of the tile-lined room and our increasing inebriation amplified our shouting. I pulled the towel around my shoulders and dried myself off, moved down to my legs. Then I wrapped the towel around my head. I sat next to Miri. She was screwing a bottle opener into a cork. She pulled it open with a pop that rang out to the walls and reflected back into our ears, bouncing again and again. It was the first echo we'd heard that night. I wonder if there are any cups around here, Miri said. She knew there weren't. I didn't know why she had asked. Let's just drink from the bottle, I said. It had never been a problem before. I grabbed it from her hand and took a swig. The sweetness tasted of aspartame. I looked at the label for ingredients and found only a description of the notes of strawberry and thyme, lots of cinnamon. My shoulder was touching hers. One of us must have been shivering because our goosebumps began to rub up against one another. I passed her the bottle. That's pretty sick, but I think it's the kind of sick that gets better as you drink it. She snorted. I interpreted it as mild laughter. She sipped from the bottle, set it on her thigh, and then sipped again. I grabbed the corkscrew from her lap, and she flinched. It was red and white with white lettering. Aesthetica, I read aloud. What's that? Williams Graphic Design Company. He owns it? He only became VP a couple years ago. I reached out for the bottle, and she handed it to me. And he's how old? 52. I was about to say old enough to be your father. I figured she'd heard that before, or at least thought it, so I took another drink instead. He's very youthful, though. Thanks. I've never heard anyone laugh. Oh, wow, this is so much better than Zoom. You should meet him. I'd like to, I said. I followed her to the edge of the pool. I had the urge to push her in. I wanted her to scream and shriek. I wanted us to laugh together. But I had a feeling it would just make her angry. So I put my arm around her waist. After a moment, she put her arm around my shoulder and patted it. She let her hand drop to her side, so I let mine drop down too. Do you want to play a drinking game? I asked. I grabbed the bottle from her hand. Like what? Like, I looked around the room, which was occupied only by the pool, the patio furniture, and the hideous spaces behind it. Like a relay. You have to swim a lap, staying underwater as long as possible. For every breath you come up for, you have to take a swig. Then when you're done, I go. Sounds like a recipe for vomit. I can't believe I haven't already from this stuff. I sat down and put my feet into the water. I shivered. I took a sip. I told her I was getting tired, and she didn't plead for me to stay any longer. I dried my hair off with the towel. We changed back into our clothes. I put on my jacket and pulled the hood over my head. Are you staying here tonight? I asked. Yeah, I'll just crash in one of the guest rooms. Oh, I said, waiting for her to invite me to do the same as she'd done in the past. When she didn't, I asked, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? William's coming here for dinner. My grandfather wants to meet him. He is paying for the wedding, so he wants to make sure he approves of him first. Mary hadn't yet put her pants back on. She was in her blouse and thongs, squirting lotion into her palm. When's the wedding again? Whimsy, didn't you get the invitation? It's next month. Her eyes were gaping wide. I put the invitation in a drawer where I wouldn't have to look at it every day. I've always wanted a winter wedding, and William didn't want to wait a year and a half when he proposed. She smiled to herself, smoothing the lotion onto her legs, and reminded me of the date. She looked beautiful, like herself. Behind her in the mirror, I could see my reflection. The scars on my face were hardly visible under the shadow of my hood. I tried to remember our conversation years ago about marriage. We must have talked about it. It seemed like all we did was discuss our opinions on relationships back then. I couldn't remember any specifics, though. Now that we were actually living it, I suppose it didn't matter what we used to think about adulthood. I wished her a happy birthday and assured her I'd be at the wedding. I went in for a hug. The air in my puffy jacket seeped out as I squeezed her. This girl that I loved so much and no longer could talk to. On the drive home, I blasted the heat. It was after midnight. Most of the stoplights had turned to blinking yellows, blinking reds. Though there were hardly anyone on the roads, I kept below the speed limit. Patches of black ice would have sprung up in the potholes. I had been drinking, but I didn't think a person could be fated for 2 car wrecks in one lifetime. And I could drive this route in my sleep.
I feel like I need to call my childhood friend now. God damn.
Homework assignment.
Yeah. We've got one final reader, our headliner. She is a Cuban-American author who lives and works in Central Florida. Her debut short story collection, Moon Trees and Other Orphans, won the St. Lawrence Book Award. Please help me welcome Leigh Camacho Rourks.
Hi, y'all. Thank you for coming out. Kevin, thank you for putting this together. My book is also here. If you want to buy one, it's Moon Trees and Other Orphans, but I won't be reading from it tonight. So I really wanted a reading while I was here. just like, needy. So it was like tweeting, like, hey, someone give me a reading. Someone give me a reading. Come on, I'm going to AWP. Someone love me. And finally I was like, if you give me a reading, I will read the rejection lit poem. And people seemed excited about that. And then Kevin was like, hey. So that's where we'll start. So this poem is called Close Your Legs and Cross Your Ankles. I am a lion. You listen here. I am a lounger, a sunner. I am a beast thing with mouth and teeth. I spread wide, hips and elbows loose and propped and open and easy. I spread and own this space, and I am not afraid. I am loud and I rip and I shred. I am Gorgon. I am Harpy. I am snarling and unnamed and undreamed. You listen here. I am languid, breast unruly, and lungs out, open, ready, sternum untight. I spread wide, scent and slit and sweat and sex. I am not afraid. I'm a goddamn moon, round and glowing, or sun, the sun. I am the weight that pulls gravity. You listen here. I am a stunner. I take, and I am not afraid. Oh, sorry. I take up space. I take up space. I take, and I am not afraid. You listen here. I am an ocean. I am the Atlantic. I carve land and I birth islands. And float. Thank you. And float ships, and I drown men, and I drown women, and I drown you too. I am not afraid. You listen here. I will not be smaller and smaller and smaller. I will not be small. It cannot be contained. I am forest. I am unsafe for you. You listen here. I'm a black hole and I eat and eat and eat. I crunch light in my teeth and exhale darkness. And I grow and I am not afraid. My mark is strong. I spread wide. You listen here. I will not be crossed and folded. I will not be shaped to suit the size of a thing, not a house, not a rule, not a cupboard, not a drawer, not a form ideal. I will not dainty to fit. I will not meek for you. I will not afraid. So in the tweet, I was like, if you let me read this, I will read it in Rage Goddess voice and not poet voice. And then I was like, well, I don't know that I can do that. I don't know if I can live up to that. Okay. This next this next poem is very different. This is a love poem-ish. Not to a person. This is called This Is How You Eat a Mango. Doesn't matter how neat you carve the flesh from skin and that fat, flat seed heart, pretty squares scattered in salmon bowls or oatmeal, or just like that, little carved Instagram geometries scooped with a spoon or plucked with dry, clean fingers. That is not eating. The sweet is leaning deep over the sink, your mouth pulling at that seed, teeth working through the string of fiber, chin wet. This is how you eat a mango. You say, aye, and you wipe your mouth with sticky orange hand back, teeth pulling at your own lip where the nectar is. and you close your eyes. You have to remember being a child or it is not eating. If you are not hunched, if you're not a little embarrassed to get caught, if you do not make a noise, a wet pig noise, you are not eating a mango. If you do not say, poquito más, looking at that sunseed like your grandmother is still alive and you are not ready for her to yet wash your face, scrubbing with a hard threaded rag because the sticky sweet stays without work, it is not a mango. It is not eating if you cannot smell tart on your skin even after warm water. If you do not think at least once that next time it'd just be easier to start in the shower or dip under a hose. If you do not want, do not long, do not ache to swim, put your feet in hot, hot sand, caw at a seagull. If you are not wild after, it is not a mango. And this next one is dedicated to my husband, so it's a different kind of love. This is called Not a Thing to Speak, and it was first published in Restplacement. You are not a beautiful word. You are not a poem to be read and reread. You are not here for that, for turning over in my mouth until you are frayed and part of me. You are not a mantra to be spoken into the hollow place in my. You're not something to be sounded out, some oral mystery that tastes like oranges when we say oranges and smells like walking barefoot and trailing rind. The memory so strong that I am sticky and blossomed when tongue touches alveolar ridge, the sound of it tactile. You are not in dictionaries and you do not rhyme well, and you are not here to make sense of everything for me, a prism to lay down on and filter and filter and filter myself through until I am a point of light, small and hard and shakingly, achingly bright. You are not here for that. You are not a naming, a knowing, a prayer to a star on a night when I am afraid to be alone and hungry. You are not that wish that I toss up like a nickel, fine and arcing. You are atom and atom and atom and atom. You are carbon and oxygen and hydrogen and nitrogen. You are water and proteins and lipids and acids. You are cells and cells and cells and cells. You are cells and cells and cells. You are muscle, you are bone, you are striation and rhythm, you are pulse and breath and the sweet smell of sleep on my shoulder. You are here, you are here, you are here. I just got a yep. Damn. That's my first yep. I'm excited. So I thought I would read something that hasn't been published, that's not done, that maybe hasn't even been fully revised. This is a chapter from a novel I'm working on, and by working on, I mean it has 70 pages 2 years ago, and it doesn't have any more. And the novel is alternating chapters, and each one is a different character, and this is the first chapter for this character, so I'm not going to set it up any more than that, except it takes place in South Louisiana, and it's called Beetle. And I saw some children in the room, so I just want to say that there's a lot of F-bombs and there's some violence in this. So Beetle doesn't look up from his book before he springs from his chair with such force that the wooden back thumps the threadbare library carpet. He shoves the book he is reading still open at the only other patron in the room, a huge man he's never seen before. Young, fat, tall, blonde, asshole. Asshole doesn't flinch, doesn't stand. He has chaw in his lip, and it moves when he speaks. You the Mexican. They call Beetle that around here, despite his thick Texas accent and the fact that his mother's people were from Guatemala and his dad is a big old redneck judge. You don't know me, Jack, he says, spit flying at this stranger who could have no. He damn well should have sat at any of the many empty tables here. But he sat at Beetle's. His table. The table he sets up at every single day. His. This fat man in an ironed t-shirt. Ironed, for God's sake. Taking up his space, his air, his table. This stay puffed marshmallow, this pressed fat fuck. He doesn't even have a book. Sitting in a goddamn library without a book. 5 empty chairs at the table. And this fat fuck with his Ray-Bans on inside the library sat in the chair right next to Beetle. His shoulder grazing Beetle's as he squeezed in. Right, Jack? You don't know me from nobody, Beetle says, bits of spit clinging to his lips. He is hungover and in no mood. Not one single mood for this crap. The man leans back, body oozing around the edges of his chair, smiles at Beetle. Heard that. Heard you were crazy. Sounds like he's mostly lost an old-timer's Cajun accent, an accent Beetle normally associates with men 30 years older than this guy has to be. He sounds like he's tried to lose it, the accent, but Beetle is good with them. You fucking did what? You heard? He says. The librarian looks up from his computer long enough to frown, but he does not take his hands from his keyboard or say anything. Beetle and the librarian are fine. They're on friendly terms. Beetle likes him. He's good people, keeps his nose straight in front of him under his own damn eyes. Beetle tries to lower his voice. All right, Jack, you heard. Beetle sits down. So when he whispers fiercely, his face will be close to Stay Puffs. Now, how about I show? Beetle is, in fact, not just a short man. He's a very, very short man. 5'1" walking. But he's a man who can take a punch, can take 6 punches and keep swinging. He's a man who is good with sticking a finger right in your eye if you need it. And the knife he carries works just fine for gutting a fish or a person. He's not worried. Stay Puft smiles, reaches for the book. Woodworking, huh? You work wood, Augustus St. John Beetle. You whittle. Then quick as shit, he snatches Beetle's stubbed right hand just like he was a child. That's not how you lost your pinky, though. Not woodworking. 5 years ago, Beetle's little finger had been fed to a bone-thin Rottweiler snapping against a too small cage. Stay Puft easily turns Beetle's fist over. His struggling, his pulling is nothing to Stay Puft McAsshole face. He shifts his grip to Beetle's wrist and uses the other hand to uncurl Beetle's tight fingers to stroke his exposed palm like a cheap fortune teller. The soft act magnifies the size difference between them. Beetle thrashes, tries to get to his knife, but the gentle stroking belies the rigid hold the fat man has. He pulls Beetle so tight over the table that Beetle's other arm, short and wide like the rest of him, is cut off from his body by the table's edge. It flails helplessly, delivering weak, short blows to Stay Puft's arm. The librarian just keeps typing. A pair of pliers appears. Beetle howls obscenities and threats, his North Texas accent thickening until all of his 20 years in Louisiana have slipped from his tongue and no one could mistake him for a local. He whips his body around, tugging and yanking, but the hold is too tight, and in reality, he barely moves. Convinced he cannot break Stay Puft's hold, he tries to break his nose, swinging his head wildly and with the force of a mallet. It's one thing, you know, to owe a man a couple thousand, Stay Puft says, easily dodging Beetle's attempts to headbutt him. It'd be better if you were still, little man. Easier for us to talk this out. Cold metal presses against the base of Beetle's pointer, slowly clamping down the pliers. The pressure pauses when it is tight, but not too tight. Not tight enough to cut off circulation. Holds there. Beetle feels rough ridges waffling into his skin. The pliers are not cutters, but they could certainly crush a small bone. Another thing entirely to spit in his face, piss on his shoes. Surprised, Beetle stops thrashing. The pressure on his finger eases slightly. He isn't sure if the man is being literal or figurative. When he gambles, and when he doesn't, he drinks if he's winning and drinks if he's losing. What he remembers of last night mostly consists of losing. What's that, Jack? And suddenly, he's pretty sure piss on his shoes isn't just a colloquialism. I gotta hand it to you, takes balls. Beetle pushes his feet off the ground, thrusting his body up the table and his forehead into the bridge of the fat man's nose, just as the pliers tighten again, quickly snapping his finger backwards. The sound of sunglasses splintering, bones cracking, and both men howling, swearing and snarling fills the library, but the librarian at the front desk does not look up. He just keeps typing. So that's that little excerpt. Tiny little bit of time left, so I thought one more poem. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. This is called Super Blood Wolf Moon. They're out there screaming Super Blood Wolf Moon. No, really. Every headline. And all that I care about is that I've become convinced that my heart is actually just a comb of bees. Not so much the honey, but that waxy buzzing bit, barely yellow, pale and curling inward, the heat of breath in my lungs melting it. This is not a metaphor for how much I miss you in bed. The way the smell of my sweat has turned sour, my spit sour, everything sour. How could it be? This honeycomb thing that can't even beat out a rhythm right, that can't do anything but drip and rumble, 1,000 forewings, hind wings, moving it instead of that beat that everyone else gets handed at birth. Everyone is locked on to some mundane moonrise, giving it magic, and I'm over here a medical marvel. This insect infestation, and still I'm walking upright. I haven't slept much. The buzzing being what it is, the way it echoes in the empty, and my veins completely overrun. Fat honey, the color of sap and sand. These bees without nectar, producing something less sweet, but still thick enough for sure. I can feel the way it crawls to gravity, and I wonder if this moon will call it, will howl in proximity, if this is the way I will go, pale honey leaking and leaving me. Take this out one more time, because is it okay if I take like a picture of the crowd? I'm like 5'2", so I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna take up some space anyway. There we go. Thank y'all.
Let's get one more round of applause for Leigh. Not least for Jordan and for Lot49. Thank you so much. I honestly had no idea how many people would come. It was incredible that we had such an awesome audience and such a packed house. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night. Please drink more beer, buy the books, buy other books, but take care. Thank you.